The wheel of time turns, and ages come and pass, leaving memories that become legend. Legend fades to myth, and even myth is long forgotten when the age that gave it birth comes again. In one age, called the Third Age by some, an age yet to come, an age long past, a wind arose in the mountains of mist. The wind was not the beginning. There are neither beginnings nor endings to the turning of the wheel of time, but it was a beginning. Guys, I have finally done it. I have finally started reading The Wheel of Time, starting with, of course, The Eye of the World. And here are my thoughts. So, The Eye of the World is part of a very, very large fantasy series called The Wheel of Time. And this is one of 14. I believe there's 14 books. Actually, there's 15 books if you count the prequel. You can see there's, as you guys can see that, there's 14 there, plus there's a prequel called New Spring. So that's a lot. And that's a very daunting task to start. I'm someone who, as you can probably see here, reads a lot of fantasy. There's my Tolkien. But this is very daunting to begin. This is. The Wheel of Time is such a large series that I've put off reading it for quite some time. But I eventually started reading it, and I really did quite enjoy this book. It wasn't phenomenal. Like, this first book, I can see why I think people really like it. I can see the potential that it has, but it's not like my favourite book ever released. It's not the greatest thing I've ever seen. There's still many books that I've read, many fantasy books that I've read, high fantasy books, that I think are much better. But saying that, this book is quite admirable in its own way, especially seeing as it was actually originally written in the 1990s. Actually, I think 1990 specifically, it was written. And so if you put that into context, it actually does do a lot of things first. It actually does introduce a lot of concepts and plays with some tropes that are typically didn't happen then, just was unheard of, and that's really admirable. But this book, looking at it from a current view, I suppose, a present view, a 2020 perspective, it holds up. It does hold up. I did really enjoy it, but there were some things that I need to get into. So first of all, let's start with the setting, which I've got to start with the setting or nothing else will make sense. As high fantasy books usually are, The Wheel of Time is set in a complete fictional world. It's a complete fictional world with its own cultures, societies, races, histories, all sorts of stuff. The story follows this boy named Randall Thor, and the book starts with this ring wraith kind of creature called a Fade, or a Murdral. I think it's Murdral is the name, but Fade is like the common term, spying on him. Like, again, similarities to Lord of the Rings. This book does have a lot of similarities to Tolkien's works. But anyway, this Fade creature is spying on them. It's quite unnerving for him, and it's not long before the entire village gets attacked. Now that's kind of crazy to me, because and it gets attacked by these trolls called Trollocs. And it's kind of crazy because in Tolkien, of course, the Shire gets attacked at the end of Return of the King. But in this book, it happens right at the beginning. So the whole idea of a sacred, not sacred really, but a safe place is completely turned on its head. There is no safe place in this book. So very quickly, Rand his friends, Matt and Perrin, and also his love interest type character, mind you she's much more than that, Egwene, and some other characters such as Nynaeve, Moraine, and Lan. So there are a lot. I'm giving you a lot of characters' names right now, but they're all important. Moraine is kind of like the mentor wizard character, but one thing that's different is, well, she's a woman. Most of the time it's an old wise guy, but this time it's a fairly youngish, probably in her 30s, woman. And the reason for that is because in this world there is two sides to the main magic. There is the male side and the female side, and the evil, whatever the evil force is in the world, from the Dark One he's named, or Baalazamon, something like that. I probably butchered that, but basically he has made it so that the male side of the magic is tarnished. It's being corrupted. So if any male magic user uses the magic too much, they go crazy, which is what we saw in the prologue. So pretty much what the premise is that now that we've just got that out of the way, Rand and his friends and some other characters, including this great jester kind of character called a Gleeman called Tom, have to escape. They have to go on the run, probably to where the Moraine's Aes Sedai. She's an Aes Sedai, by the way. That's what the wizards are called. They're called Aes Sedai, the female wizards. They are going to her place. They're going to her headquarters. And that's basically the rest of the book. The rest of the book is it's pretty much a road trip not really a road trip, but it's an adventure book. It's a travel book. It's a journey book. As they try and travel and go on all these different adventures along the way. Not like The Hobbit. It's much more streamlined than The Hobbit. It's not like a bunch of vignettes. But that is a complaint that I do have with the book. The pacing is a bit stunted at times. So there will be like a really exciting moment as they go continue on this travel, and then it will stop, and it'll be really slow. And I quite like slow pacing. I mean, my favorite book is one of my favorite books is The Name of the Wind, right? I'm no stranger to slow pacing. I don't dislike slow pacing, but there are certain times within this book that it's just super slow, like really slow, and you just think, come on Jordan, come on Robert Jorden, pick up the slack, just pick it up. And so that is a complaint that I do have with the book. Another complaint that I have is that it just gets a lot of getting used to, because the world, the culture, the societies, they are very in depth, very different from our own. And it does take a while. Like, you're like, what's a Randolph Thor? What's an Aes Sedai? What's a Tom Gleeman? Like, you don't know. What's a Trolloc? And these things do take time. But I found that the more I was getting used to the book, the more I started to really enjoy this story. I loved the characters. The characters actually were some of my favorite. They started off as, okay, I want to put these into this category. I'm going to put them into these stereotypes. But no, every single character in this book did things that, except for Rand, really, he's kind of like your typical chosen one. He is your typical chosen one. But every other character did things in the story that I thought, well, okay, that's really interesting. And there were quite a lot of little subplots that I found quite enjoyable. And there is a certain bit of the book when the characters do split off and they go their separate ways. And from there, we actually do learn a lot about certain characters that we wouldn't, have normally learnt of. That we wouldn't have normally learnt. Perrin and Egwene, for example, get separated. And we learn about stuff. We learn a lot about their characters and their dynamics, their chemistry with that, and a bit about them. And there are also consequences, because the kids in it, well, young adults, but they make a lot of mistakes. Especially Matt, one of Rand's main friends, he makes a lot of mistakes. And he's actually apparently some of the communities, the real-time community's favourite character. I don't see that now. He's fine, but he actually has no point of view chapters in this book. Rand basically gets all of the point of view chapters in this book. And Matt was fine. I enjoy Matt. But what I'm trying to get at is that this book I enjoyed it. It was a good high fantasy story, and a lot of really enjoyable events happened. It was quite well written. Mind you, Jordan does seem to repeat some phrases a bit. Like, he uses the same phrase, something about like moonlight glittering or something along those lines. Basically, my point is he does like to use some of the same phrasings quite a lot. Not a huge amount, but enough that I noticed it, of course. And what else was I going to say? And he does also use exposition quite a lot. He does sometimes, usually through a character having a big speech or a monologue, they explain all of this lore. And that's fine, but you gotta sit down. You gotta sit down and be ready for it. And so it does feel quite, and in that sense, it does feel quite classic fantasy in that aesthetics. Now, the last thing I'm gonna say before I move on to the spoiler section is they do meet a giant-like character. And one thing I will say with this book is it's not like there isn't elves, there isn't dwarves. It's not the typical fantasy races. There are other races in this book. Not a lot actually in this first one, but I know there are some, and we do get to meet a few. But one of the main characters that we meet towards the end of the book is this guy called this ogre kind of guy, and he is amazing. I love him. He's hilarious. He is he's a great character. That's all I'll say for the moment. And the last thing I'll say is that the end of this book, the last fifth or so, did feel quite rushed. I will say that I was a bit. This is the first. Maybe if I reread it, if I read the rest of the series and I come back to this one, I will probably find a lot of enjoyment in this ending and understand it more. But at the moment, I did find the ending, particularly the kind of like, there isn't really a final battle. There is a confrontation, and I didn't really get it. I sort of understood what happened, but it wasn't super clear to me until afterwards. And then I went, oh, I sort of understand. But I still don't even know what the Eye of the World really is. It's this kind of like well thing. And it has like this magic source. But I still don't understand it really. So, and same with the magic itself. I don't actually still understand really what the magic is. So I feel like Jorden could have done a better job of explaining that stuff to me. Might just be me. Maybe when you guys first read this book, if you have, let me know if you had those same questions. I'm sure that, as I continue the series, I will understand it more. But as of now, I have no idea. Not really. But, I've got the other two. I've got 2 and 3 there, which I'll get onto soon. And so the book isn't really a series that, when I finished reading this, I didn't think to myself, yeah, this is the stuff. This is the best thing I've written. I'm going to read 14 more of these, I think. 14 more of these, and just, yeah, I can't wait. But what I did think was, this was an enjoyable experience. I really liked the characters in it. They were well developed. They were well executed. And the story is intriguing. The world is intriguing. And I am interested to see what happens next, despite some issues I have with it. Yeah. In terms of my thoughts related to particular moments, spoilers, if you will. So if you haven't read the book, please do not watch this. Go to the end. I'll put a timestamp up just right now. Boop, there you go. Right there. Yeah? Cool. Awesome. So some of the questions that I have relating to spoilers are, what's going to happen to Perrin and Matt? So Matt gets this dagger in it. The bit when Matt took the dagger out, and then Rand says on the boat, and Rand says something along the lines of, "Where'd you get that?" And he said, "Well, at the place where the guy offered us that treasure, the evil place." Yeah, I cursed out loud. I was like, "No, what?" Because Moraine previously said that it tarnishes the soul, and so that was a great bit of setting something up and then paying it off, and I found that was really, really effective. But the question I have now is, what's going to happen to him? Because of course, throughout the when him and Rand are going on their little adventure through towns, trying to get to Camelin, and they're getting stopped. Which actually, even though that was a slow part of the book, I actually did quite enjoy that. I did find that what's going to happen to him, because he gets more and more angry, and then by the time they get to Camelin, he's just not mad anymore. He's completely changed. And Moraine is of course able to revert it back to the beginning, so he still acts like himself. But she specifically says the dagger's still there, and she says it will come back over time. So she's basically, I guess, just like reverted it to the beginning again. So what's that going to happen? How is Matt going to escape from that? And I'm really interested to see what happens next with that. In terms of Perrin, he's got wolf eyes. He has wolf powers. I don't understand how. How does my guy have wolf powers? And in terms of that little section, there's that bit when the vulture, what were they called? There's the crows, or whatever they were, the birds, they were coming, and Perrin literally had the thought that he would use his axe to kill Egwene if it meant not getting killed by the birds. And well, that's quite gruesome. I mean, why did he think that? Like, what I'm thinking of is, what's that setting up? What does that mean? Does that mean he has a ruthless kind of pragmatic streak to him? Where is that going to go in the future? Because I'm pretty worried about that. That's quite an intense moment that sort of gets brushed on afterwards. And then he talks to the guy about it, the other wolf speaker, wolf whatever they're called. And I'm just thinking that's got to be a serious moment. Like, that's got to mean something. In terms of Egwene herself, I thought that she's pretty great. I like how she's herself and she's not part of Matt. Same with the Wisdom, what's her name? Nynaeve and Moraine. I found them to be all really good characters, and I loved how this isn't like Tolkien, where there's two women and their love interests. These characters were their own selves. Of course, Egwene and Nynaeve do have love, like, sort of start to have love stories in this book, but they're not defined by that. That's not who they are, which is fantastic. I will say that sort of a criticism that I have is that those three women are quite similar in some ways. They're all a pretty no-nonsense, get what they want, a little bit sassy, and I wonder if that's just because that's who those three characters are, or if that's going to be a bit of a trend with how Jorden writes females. So we'll have to see. That's a complaint that I'll have to continue on with the series and see if that comes up more. And in terms, of course, of Ram being the Dragon Reborn, I loved a bit of foreshadowing there with the magic and how Moraine talks about the magic, and she mentions that and Moraine mentions with the magic that what did she mention? She mentions that after like a week you start to get effects, and it happens because of something you really want, and we definitely saw that with, I think, all three of the main male characters with all the young men. And so and if you're noticing that was really rewarding to read and not be told about it, and still be like, yes, I can see that. So I really like that. I really did like that. And the final spoiler thing that I'm going to talk about is the final battle with Rand and Ba'alzamon. I didn't really get it. So he was on top of the hill, running away from this dude, and then somehow he like feels this power, and he like throws a lasso on him, or like a rope, like this powerful rope, and he has a rope, and then this guy has a rope, and then he beats this guy, and then he goes and he like somehow teleports to the field where the soldiers are having this battle, and he does like a super powerful thing and wins the battle for them, and then he fights the Dark One in a vision and defeats him. I don't know, I understood it. I didn't really understand the ramifications of it, and I found it to be a little bit anticlimactic a little bit. Everything was there that I was expecting, but I expected the other characters to have a bit more involvement in it. But the Green Man was cool. I love the Green Man. I love the Green Man. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the Eye of the World. Overall, enjoyed it. Good book. Gonna start reading The Great Hunt sooner rather than later, and then I'll get my thoughts back on that. This has been the beginning of my Wheel of Time journey. I'm gonna read all these books. I'm gonna do it. Not that this book has motivated me super much, but I did think it was an enjoyable experience. It was a fun book, and I did really like it. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more videos by me, we've got lots of other stuff on the channel. Lots of stuff. I'm gonna do more book reviews. I've actually got a video coming up about Zelda soon, about Breath of the Wild's story. So that stuff, those content, if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, more basically, I just cover stories. I cover book stories. As you can see, I do games, and I also do sometimes TV and film. I just love stories. So if that sounds like something you'll be interested in, make sure to subscribe. Click that little bell so you'll be notified when I upload. And also subscribe and like. I probably said subscribe before. I don't know if I've said things twice. That always happens. Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. I've been the Aussie Viking, and I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.